You to First Coast News at 5. I'm Anthony Austin.
I'm Heather Crawford. Jeannie Blaylock will join us live in just a moment. But first tonight, the JEA corruption case with two former top execs on trial. Former JEA CEO Aaron Zahn and former CFO Ryan Wanamaker were back in the federal courtroom today on charges of conspiracy and wire fraud related to the failed sale of the public utility.
And we have live team coverage from the first day of the trial. Renata DiGregorio has been inside the courtroom all day, along with digital content producer Toby Nell Perkins, and our legal expert, attorney Shannon Schott, is here to analyze today's proceedings. But first, we want to go live to Jeannie Blaylock outside of the federal courthouse.
So the big question is, who is telling the truth? Two juries in the courthouse behind me are going to have to decide that. Right now, they are listening to witnesses for the prosecution, and there are many of them, 30 for the government. Let's go now to Renata DiGregorio. She's been in the courtroom all day today. Renata?
Jeannie, the first witness in this whole trial lasted nearly 5 hours on the stand. Now, things have sped up a little more since then, but that first witness was the CEO of JEA before Aaron Zahn, and he testified that JEA was in great financial shape while he was in charge. However, the defense attorneys tried to poke holes in that argument. The JEA CEO we're talking about is Paul McElroy. He testified the day he resigned in 2018, JEA's financial situation was extraordinarily healthy, and that was still the case 2 years later when he took over again after Zahn. Zahn is accused of manipulating the public by feeding them lies that JEA was in a bad financial spot. Zahn's defense attorneys questioned the financial forecast that McElroy had talked about, showing PowerPoint slides that listed concerns for the utility that could harm employees. But prosecutors say Zahn advocated for cutting 30% of JEA's workforce and raising rates, and presented selling JEA as a solution. And prosecutors asked McElroy if he saw a need to do these things when he was CEO, and McElroy said no to each. Zahn and former JEA CFO Ryan Wanamaker are accused of trying to steal millions through the creation of a bonus plan in the sale of JEA. So today, we also heard from an attorney who was asked to look into the creation of that bonus plan. She believed there was a conflict of interest and it could not be done legally under Florida law. More noteworthy testimony we've heard in the last several hours comes from an investigator with the state attorney's office. He determined from looking at what some of the documents showed that some people would become very rich off the sale of JEA. Jeannie?
Thank you very much, Renata. Let's talk now to our legal expert. Shannon Schott is an attorney here in Jacksonville. And Renata just brought something up I wanted to ask you about, and I printed it out so we could be absolutely accurate. This came from Elizabeth Colombo. She was on the witness stand today. She is an attorney for Nixon Peabody, an out-of-town law firm. She was talking about the PUP plan, the bonus plan that they were researching. And she said she was reading from a memo, a draft memo, quote, "We do not believe that the program would be able to clear legal hurdles under Florida law." Now, you say that's very significant. How come?
Absolutely. We know that the defense's primary argument here is that they had lawyers approve the plan. So if we know that these lawyers that they contacted are saying that this wasn't legal, who are these lawyers that approved the plan?
And so that brings up one thing that you kind of mentioned before. Are they possibly insinuating to the jury that the JEA executives shopped around for a law firm that might agree with them?
Certainly, we know that there were at least 3 other law firms, and it doesn't appear that any of them were general counsel for the city of Jacksonville, which is the firm for JEA. So it just begs the question as to why, and I think the government's going to have to answer that question for the jury eventually, or the defense will have to figure that out.
And let's talk about what kind of testimony we're hearing. A lot of legal jargon, or corporate jargon, I should say, because, I mean, some of these terms as a layman I've never heard before, and these are jurors just from ordinary society. And how does this play to the prosecution or to the defense?
This is extremely complex, and part of the government's task here is to get the jury educated on all of these terms, and that's probably why McElroy came in this morning or today to just give them a baseline information for what they can expect to see throughout the rest of the trial.
We appreciate that. Thank you very much,
you.
Shannon. Now let's talk about a question that I get all the time, and that is, what if JEA had sold? Well, the answer is, for sure, JEA employees were already nervous and they were scared about it. Some 2,000 JEA employees.
A few people were out to make a lot of money at the expense of the whole city.
Tim Wing and his fellow JEA workers tell me they were skeptical about this bonus plan.
I'm kind of down at the bottom, but I could see through it.
And worst of all, selling JEA could have meant job loss for hundreds of JEA employees.
That's the gut punch of gut punches.
City Councilman Matt Carlucci says if JEA had been sold to a private company, probably FPL, it would have been bad for Jacksonville. He says we could have lost control of our own water.
You don't know if they're going to start selling some of your water to somebody downstate. You just don't know. You have no control.
But others say a sale could have brought big money into the city budget for road repair and other infrastructure. But how close did we come to selling JEA? Tonight at 6, we'll look at this document to find out. Bottom line, the attempted sale of JEA is at the very center of this JEA scandal. Zahn and Wanamaker's alleged scheme hinged on the sale of JEA. And to keep our perspective of how big a deal this trial is, Nate Monroe from our news partner, the Florida Times-Union.
But we've never had public officials accused of trying to steal tens of millions of dollars in public money. So in raw dollars and cents, this is far and away the biggest alleged fraud in the city's history.
So tonight at 6, we will delve further into that draft document I just showed you. How close did we come to selling JEA? Jeannie Blaylock, First Coast News, live at the federal courthouse, on your side.
Thank you, Jeannie. And First Coast News will continue covering this trial from gavel to gavel. Follow along on our First Coast News app. Just look for the section titled JEA Corruption Trial.